If I said the word fashion, what comes to mind? Certainly not my wardrobe. But seriously, what do you think of? Clothing by designer labels? Models on runways? Striking a pose? Now, what if I said fashion law? See, this is what I love about niches. For pretty much every aspect of our lives, even the clothes we wear, there's a lawyer. Attorneys in the fashion industry do a lot of different things. They facilitate the procurement of materials and packaging. They negotiate leases for studios. They help make garments appear on virtual and brick-and-mortar racks. They watch over copyrights and trademarks and enforce their company's brands. There are probably some general corporate attorneys out there saying, so what, big deal. I handle that same type of work for my company in another vertical. And that may be true, but you're still not a fashion lawyer. Even the name is cool. Now let's go one step further. Actually, several thousand miles further. How many lawyers do you know who've raced around the reality TV world like a modern-day globe-trotting Phineas Fogg? Me? I know exactly one, and she's my guest today. I'm John Reed, and this is Sticky Lawyers, a podcast featuring conversations with attorneys who differentiate themselves through the relationships they cultivate with clients and influencers and the unique nature of their law practices. Jenny Wu is high energy, and she's badass. She's fearless and spontaneous, resilient and driven. Her focus in law school was completely different from the path she ultimately took, but a chance meeting made her pivot, one of a few she's made. We'll hear about that, her career in fashion, and how she became a finalist on CBS's Amazing Race. I am so pumped to have her on the show today. Jenny, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
We've got a lot of things to talk about, or you've got a lot of stories to share, but let's start with your, what I call the origin story. So fill in the blank for me. Your initial plan coming out of law school was to be a what?
A lawyer.
I guess I was going for the corporate law thing.
Yeah, we're going to a law firm, doing what all of my peers and classmates were doing, going through the interviews, trying to get a summer internship at one of the tall buildings in downtown LA, and becoming a lawyer, because that was what I had known.
And you even spent a summer in a big law firm too, so you were already heading down that path.
Absolutely. I spent a summer staring, inside the walls of O'Melveny and Myers in LA. And of course, once you're actually in there, you think it's going to be one experience. And then I realized I had just spent my summer reviewing through like hundreds of thousands of pages of documents, redacting. Like basically, I was the computer version of copy and paste, copy and find. So that's what I did.
So what happened? You're headed down this path, and then what caused you to pivot?
I was going through the motion, interviewing at the law firms for these coveted summer internship positions, and it didn't feel completely right. It just didn't feel like a good fit with any of the firms that I was interviewing for. So I definitely had my reservations, but because everybody was doing it, I was like, oh, this is what I need to do, because it seems to be the quote unquote right things to do. And so in the middle of that, I saw that the business school at USC, our next door neighbor, they were hosting an event, and the speaker at this event was going to be Jeff LaBelle, who was the former CEO and founder of True Religion Jeans. True Religion Jeans at the time was the it denim brand. This was during the time when denim brands in LA specifically were having their moment in fashion, and all the celebrities were wearing Jeff LaBelle's True Religion jeans. We're talking about Lindsay Lohan and Jessica Simpson, the OG it girls of that time. And so I was very excited to hear him speak. I went to the business school. I sat through. I was so inspired by what he has to say. He had started a few other denim brands before True Religion Jeans, and they all flopped. And I think he was down to his last $100,000. It was make it or break it moment for him. Yeah. He started True Religion Jeans with his wife, and they didn't have any money to do any actual marketing or to hire a PR firm. So what he did was he was at a gas station, spot attractive looking women, and just hand them his jeans. It was like guerrilla style marketing. And I just love that he got into the trenches and was doing this was so creative. So after he spoke, I went up to him and I was like, listen, Mr. LaBelle, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Jenny. I'm a law student. I'm not quite a lawyer yet, but I would love to work for you. I just think you're inspiring, the company inspired. If there's anything I can do for you, I have 1 full year of law school under my belt, so I know some stuff, but let's see what we can do. And he looked at me, took my information, was very gracious. And a few days later, his chief operating officer, she called me and was like, hey, come in for an interview. I think we might have something for you. So I was the first person in their legal department. I was the legal department at True Religion Jeans. And I basically worked there that my second year, of law school that summer when all of my friends were at the law firms. I was in Vernon working for True Religion Jeans. And what I was in charge of was implementing counterfeit measures.
So what did you know about fashion law on day one? You walk in, you are now the de facto legal department. Had you done any sort of coursework or intellectual property classes or anything in law school that would have prepared you?
I had taken one IP law class at USC, and that was the extent of my knowledge. I did not even know fashion law really existed. In fact, I think it was a term that kind of really came to once I started my career as quote unquote a fashion lawyer.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I didn't know what I was getting myself into at True Religion, but I just knew that this was where I wanted to be and that there could be a place. And if not, I could carve out a place for myself at this company.
So what grabbed you? What was the flame? You just said, this is the place where I want to be. Why? Was it the environment? Was it the subject matter? Was it the industry? What got its hooks in you?
I've always been very interested and passionate about fashion. And I've always just loved the energy of being around creatives, designers. And in LA, you can't really escape that. So for me to be at a place where I could bring together my education, my legal background, and also that passion for that industry in general, to me, that was just perfect. I really found something like a niche that could be something long-term for me.
So fortunate. So many people just don't find that. They can't get the stars to line up like that. So that's fantastic. So in my very limited knowledge of fashion law, what I do think I understand is over pretty much every other type of garment, jeans are the most counterfeited, if that's the right term. And so I'm wondering what makes counterfeit jeans fake? What is it about them that makes them so counterfeited and why they rise to the top of the list like that?
At the time, denim was just going through its fashion revolution, and it was all about the it jeans, which were 7 jeans, Citizens of Humanity, True Religion. They were on the top of the list in terms of what people were coveting. And I think the reason why is because that was when denim started to really have this sense of identity attached to it.
Okay.
With True Religion jeans, it was very distinct. They had the curved like bell shape on the pockets. So there were very distinct identifiers. And so people associated these identifiers with every kind of different label, right? It's okay, this is who you are, this is your image. And this is also the first time where jeans were elevated to the place of premium denim. And all of a sudden, jeans were $180. That was the starting price range. True Religion jeans, they ranged from $180 all the way to $330. So it became a status symbol. And of course, anytime something rises to status symbol, you get a lot of people who want it but don't really want to pay the premium price for it. There was just a huge explosion of counterfeits, mainly coming from China. And they were making their way over to every part of the country. But in LA specifically, there was an area in downtown called Santee Alley where a lot of the jeans were sold. Not only were they sold there, but there were warehouses nearby that were just housing tens of thousands of pairs of jeans.
Again, back to my fashion naivete here. Apart from the label and the logo, what can you protect about a pair of jeans? Is the stitching something that you can get a copyright for or a trademark for? Help me understand what about the product you can protect under IP law.
Obviously, trademark is the first that comes to mind. You can get trademark protection for the label itself. In True Religion's instance, and this was unique to True Religion, they actually had design patent for the stitching because it was, I think, the first denim brand to have double stitching.
Okay.
And so Jeff LaBelle, he was smart enough to get that, patented. And so that afforded us another level of protection. And then, of course, there is trade dress protection as well. The identifier was the little cowbell on the pockets. And so even if they looked very similar, then you could make a trade dress argument as well. So there were several layers of protection for the jeans.
So when a company like True Religion learns of some bad guy out there counterfeiting their jeans, what would you, as their intellectual property enforcement counsel, then do at that point, now in your second year of law school?
The first piece was to send out cease and desist letters, these scary sounding letters that basically put the offenders on notice. And of course, if things escalated in which they did not comply, then I would refer them out to outside counsel. We would discuss whether we needed to start implementing litigation against the infringers. And sometimes when it was more of a local case, when we knew that there were suppliers storing the jeans in warehouses and locations throughout LA, I would actually go with our investigator and we would go and do a search and try to confiscate the products, and so that we would have the evidence. And the reason why I needed to go was because they needed someone from inside True Religion Jeans to identify the jeans, to say, yes, these jeans are counterfeit. And I had to list on that affidavit the reasons why they were counterfeit, so that if local law enforcement wanted to take criminal action against the counterfeiters, they could.
So tell me about the first time you ever did this. How long were you with the company? And tell me what went down.
Yeah, this was like probably within the first week, because I think they were like relieved that they finally had somebody on the inside who could go with the investigators to do this. And we drive to downtown to Santee Alley. And then behind Santee Alley, there are just they look like just like small office buildings, but no windows, nothing. And then we met up with like local law enforcement. And I'm like, whoa, this is getting serious. I thought we were just here with our investigator. And they're starting to like talk and organize a plan. And they're like, okay, it's time. We're going to do this. And then they had these long things that I've seen on like Law and Order, where they try to like bust the door. And I was like, whoa, what are we doing here, guys? I had no idea this is going down. So they knocked the door down, and from ceiling all the way to the ground, just jeans, boxes and boxes filled with True Religion jeans. There must have been tens of thousands of pairs. And I was just so shocked. And it almost just seemed like a scene out of a movie. And they were able to find the person who was working there, and they arrested him. He was like in handcuffs. And they're going through the boxes. They're taking out packages. And they're like, hey, Jenny, can you like tell us why these are counterfeit? And I'm like giving my statement. And it was just such a surreal moment. And then I remember thinking, wow, this is what I am doing my first week on the job. I wonder what my friends are doing at their law firm gigs right now. Yeah, they're probably just sitting behind their desk writing a brief or something. And I'm like, yeah, I think I definitely made the right decision. It felt great to be in the middle of the action, to be able to effectively do something in my very first week of not really knowing anything.
I'm blown away by that. You couldn't have prepared for that.
No, it was a really defining moment for me, for sure.
So you graduate from law school. Then what happened? Didn't go back to True Religion. What happened?
I had to take some time off to study for the bar.
Yep.
And by the time I was, finished doing that, they finally actually had an in-house counsel. They had a general counsel, and they didn't really have the budget to hire like an associate or a junior in-house counsel. And I totally understood. And I started job searching. But this time I knew exactly what type of companies I wanted to target.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to work in-house, and I wanted to work for a fashion company. And I know that was a very kind of lofty goal for a new lawyer, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to just see what's out there. Who knows? I do have some experience now at True Religion. They're a fantastic company. Everybody knows True Religion. Like maybe that will give me some clout to find something. I job searched and I found a company. I found Tokidoki. They are a small fashion company in LA. They are a character-based company. They're Hello Kitty, but like an edgier version, a more badass version of Hello Kitty. Because they are character based, they actually had a lot of issues with copyrights and trademarks. They also did a lot of licensing with other companies all over the world. So they actually had quite the need for in-house counsel. So I interviewed with them and I was hired first as an associate counsel. They had a GC at the time, but she left shortly after I got there. And so I was promoted to general counsel of Tokidoki.
Unbelievable. So I think you're underselling it. So Tokidoki, now at least, is a multi-million-dollar international fashion and accessories brand. And regardless, at that time, you're barely 2 years out of law school and you're the general counsel for this company.
Yeah, they've been doing really well. And what makes Tokidoki really unique and special is the collaboration they do. They've had collaborations with Mattel, with Marvel, with Sanrio, with Le Sportsac, a lot of the major brands. So working on their copyright, trademark portfolio, working on licensing agreements, the company definitely kept me very busy and I was able to see their expansion while I was there.
What are you feeling at that point in time? What are you thinking on day one as general counsel? How did I get here? Were you overwhelmed?
I was excited, overwhelmed, sure. But I think by then I learned that it's actually great to always feel a little bit of fear.
Yeah.
A little bit of what am I doing? I think it's great to feel that because then it just fuels your drive to be constantly learning and to constantly try to outperform yourself and to be better at your job. So now I feel like I thrive on that feeling, that a little bit of uneasiness. Where in the beginning, I didn't really know how to harness that feeling and energy. Sure. Now I'm like, you know what, I'm going to use that to my advantage and just keep growing.
So there came a point when you decided to leave Tokidoki and to do what? Tell us about what came next.
I started a blog. That was, at that time, fashion beauty blogs were sort of in their infancy stage, but people were becoming more and more interested. So I started my blog, and then after a while, I started getting paid to write blog posts about fashion and about beauty. And then I started getting invited to things like Milan Fashion Week and going to like London to see Jay-Z and Justin Timberlake perform. So I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like this is becoming something. This could become a business. And I made a very hard decision of what I think it's time for me to take some time off from my legal career and to focus on this new burgeoning industry and see where this, takes me. And that was quite the ride. My blog, the name of my blog is Good, Bad, and Fab. And there were definitely some very fabulous moments during that time period. Just getting to attend like red carpet premieres and parties and fashion events and being able to like just converse with designers that I've always idolized. It was such a surreal moment and surreal time. It was very exciting.
What a throw out. I can't help but think that Jeff Lavelle would have given you a pair of jeans at that point because you were an influencer, right?
Actually, yes. This was years later, but actually their marketing department, they contacted me not knowing like my past connection to the company. And they were like, hey, we want to collab with you. Interesting.
So you have obviously proven that one can monetize a blog. At the time, there were no handbooks for this. You were writing the story as it went along.
Yeah, for sure. I connected with a very great network of fashion bloggers in LA, and we supported each other through this journey because we were all maintaining our own businesses. I think what was very challenging about blogging was exercising both that creative side of me and also the business. Mm-hmm. And how do I combine the two and balance the two so that I can continue to drive this business, forward? Because at that point when I had quit Tokidoki, it became a business of maintaining my blog. So that was that was a new challenge that I hadn't really, faced before, because previously I was always working for someone. Now I'm held accountable to myself.
So Good, Bad, and Fab is still a thing. It's still going. But you were able to take what you learned during that time and then go back in-house. Could you tell us what Instaco is and what you did there?
I would say the driving force behind me going back in-house was I had a baby. And I was at a stage in my life where I was like, okay, because when you're a blogger, you live a pretty nomadic lifestyle. It's a lot of traveling, a lot of, going to different places. And I think once I had a baby, it really grounded me, literally and figuratively. So I was like, I think I need to revisit law. And this opportunity actually just came up. Instaco, they are a company that they create and build fashion brands for influencers.
Okay.
So it was really just the perfect marriage of everything that I had been working on before. I knew the influencer industry, I know fashion, I know law. So it just worked out really well. And so I was their general counsel and head of business development. I worked with Hollywood agents and managers and influencers to put together licensing deals. But this time I was on the licensee side, whereas at Tokidoki, we were always the licensors in deals. Now I was the licensee, and the influencer was the licensor who was licensing their brand and their likeliness and their image to put on the fashion brands. It was very fast paced and really enjoyed that time too.
Sure.
It was familiar in terms of the legal work that I was doing, but the environment was completely new. And it was an environment that didn't even exist a few years ago. And I think that's what made it all the more exciting.
Well, general counsel and in charge of business development. Was your own influencer status a door opener for you? Did people know you, not as somebody from Instaco necessarily, but because of Good, Bad, and Fab and now Child, that you were getting in the door and talking to people?
Listen, my blog was certainly not on the level of these influencers who had millions of followers and subscribers, but it definitely helped in that I knew the industry in and out. And so I was able to preempt their questions and provide them with the answers. And I think it definitely made them comfortable knowing that I was somebody who was so immersed in that industry and knew about the industry on that level.
You could tell them the questions they should be asking you. You had written the book by that point.
Right, exactly.
So tell us what you're doing now.
Right now, for the past year with the pandemic, I've been acting as outside counsel for creatives, designers, people who are starting their own brands, like startups, and even influencers. So it's been great. I really enjoy it because for me, my whole philosophy on my legal career has been, I want to be able to directly affect change in a positive way. I want to help people with my knowledge of the law. And I never felt that I could have done that at a law firm, because we all know a lot of what lawyers at law firms do, at least the first few years, is really just pushing papers.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to help. I want to be able to affect change as quickly, as directly as possible. And I feel like now what I am doing in serving as basically outside legal counsel to these artists and designers and creatives, I'm able to do that immediately. I see the results immediately, and it makes me really happy. And they're so appreciative. They are so immersed in the creative process that sometimes they don't know how to protect themselves from certain legal ramifications and the legal elements of starting a business.
Because of your creative passion, though, you're not the doom and gloom lawyer. You don't come in and say, oh, you can't do this or you must do this. Because you speak their language and share their fire for that, whatever it may be, medium, you're a good comrade to have. You're a comrade in arms.
I understand what they're going through. And so for me, it's about figuring out the most efficient, effective way of helping them reach their goals. To me, that's the most fulfilling part.
We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, Jenny's going to take us on an amazing race. So stay tuned. Quick quiz for you. What's the difference between a serif font and a sans serif font? If the primary color of your firm's logo and website are blue, because, shocker, most law firms' logos and websites are blue, how do you determine the best complementary colors? How do you create a firm brochure and marketing materials that are always current, even when attorneys join and leave your practice? If you don't remember seeing these questions on the bar exam, it's because they weren't there. But if you're trying to promote your firm brand and create compelling marketing pieces meant to impress your next best client, the answers are just as important as the rule in Shelley's case. Okay, way more important than the rule in Shelley's case. Think about all the places your firm's brand appears. Business cards and stationery, your website, print and digital ads, swag, newsletters, email signature blocks, pitch pieces, and marketing collateral. You may not need all these things, but the ones you do have must be consistent and professional, like you and your practice. For more than 10 years, Rain BDM has helped lawyers and law firms put their best faces forward. Our graphic design team creates the marketing elements and pieces that distinguish our clients in the marketplace and leave lasting impressions on their clients. To learn more about Rain BDM, our graphic design consultants, and the creative services we offer, call us at 855-790-RAIN. That's 855-790-7246. Or visit our website at rainbdm.com to read blog posts, download guides and checklists, and play with our really cool homepage slider. And now, back to our guest. We are back with fashion lawyer turned branding entrepreneur Jenny Wu. So, Jenny, let's go back to 2015. What was going on in your life at that point?
I was a full-time blogger, living that nomadic lifestyle.
Hitting the runways in Milan, absolutely.
Yeah. And I was also going through some personal stuff in my life. I was going through a really bad breakup at the time. And I remember I was at a 4th of July pool party with my friends, with some of my best friends. And one of my friend and I, we had a few drinks at that point, and we were like sitting by the pool. And she was kind of going through something similar. And we should do something. And I was like, we should go on The Amazing Race. She was like, what? Yeah, that would be perfect. My friend, she's a journalist, so she also lives a very nomadic lifestyle. We love to travel. We're always on the go. We are looking for something in our life right now. Why don't we just try it? Let's see. And she's like, are they even casting? What do you know about The Amazing Race? I'm like, not much, but I've seen a few seasons. It's a great show. It's quality reality TV. And they get to travel the world. Let's just try. So I pull out my phone and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're actually casting right now. This is fake. We have to do this. She said, okay, what do we have to do? And I was like, okay, we have to make a video. We have to submit it. And it was a long weekend. So we actually ended up going to our elementary school where we shot this video and submitted it.
What were you drinking that caused you to think of Amazing Race as opposed to anything else?
I have no idea. Maybe I've watched the show before. I loved it. And for some reason, just, the idea of not being in LA at the time and being somewhere else and going on this completely wild experience. I didn't think I was going to get cast on the show. Let's be clear. When I brought this up to my friend, it was really just something that came to mind half jokingly, but then also because we just tend to follow through things we talk about. We did it. But after I submitted the tape, I didn't really think anything of it. I was like tens of thousands of people probably submit their tapes. But the day later, I get a call from one of the casting people, and they're like, hey, we saw your video. You guys are great. And we would like to talk to you a little bit further about The Amazing Race. And I was like, okay, do you want to talk to my friend too? And they were like, actually, we're doing things a little bit differently this season, where we're pairing up single people to race together. And your friend says she was in a long-term relationship. So unfortunately, we can't move forward with her. So I called my friend because I felt really bad. We were supposed to go on this amazing, journey together. She was very supportive, so I got her blessing, and I continued in the casting process. It was pretty rigorous. I was submitting videos almost every week, but every time it was like, okay, congratulations, you're moving on to the next round. You're moving on to the next round. You're moving on to the next round. Until one Friday afternoon, I got, an email from them saying, sorry, Jenny. I think the email was nice. It was like, oh, we don't think we have a place for you this season, but like basically keep trying. Good luck. At first, I was definitely sad, disappointed.
Yeah.
But then I was like, yeah, they said no, but I'm not going to take that no just yet. I'm going to keep trying.
Well, so let me stop you because I want you to tell the story. But there are some strong similarities about how you got your first job, your law job at True Religion, and how you were ultimately selected to be on The Amazing Race, right?
Yeah, I just think there's always a chance. There's always an opportunity. Like you just have to, if you want something, just fight for it and try hard enough. And until you've exhausted all your resources, I don't tend to take no at first glance. It just so happened that weekend, the MTV Movie Awards and the Emmys were taking place. And I was invited to attend the Emmys and also their after party, the governor's ball. So I was like, oh, The Amazing Race, they're nominated for an Emmy. They're always nominated every single year for Best Reality Show. That means the entire team will be there. So maybe I can try to find, I don't know, maybe the creator of The Amazing Race. He's a few steps above like the casting director. Maybe I can talk to him and convince him to let me back on the show. But I'm at the Emmys, The Amazing Race, they win for Best Reality Show. So I'm like, this is great. They're going to be in such a good mood when I approach them at the governor's ball. I was clapping so hard when I heard he won. So afterwards, we go to the governor's ball and it is amazing. People like dancing on the ceiling. There's like tons of just food and crazy stuff like everywhere. And all I'm focused on is how do I find the creator of The Amazing Race? Oh, there he is. He's sitting down. I run up to him. No, not run. I like, casually walk up to him. But inside, I was shaking, just feeling all this adrenaline and excitement. I go up to him and I'm like, you don't know me, but my name is Jenny Wu, and I had applied to be on The Amazing Race. And I got pretty far, but you guys cut me on Friday. And I just think that you've made a mistake and I should be on your show because, and I gave a bunch of reasons. I don't even remember what. And he takes one look at me. And I was thinking, okay, he's either going to think I'm like really crazy or maybe he'll be impressed. And he's okay. And I'm like, okay, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Okay, we'll let you back on the show. And Lynn is the casting director. He's, Lynn, come over here. Lynn, this is Jenny. You cut her from the show on Friday. I think you should put her back on. And that was it. Okay, thank you. Have a great night.
How long between that night and the start of the race?
A few months. And during that time period, I watched every single season, taking down notes. Like, I got to figure out what is the strategy here? Sure. What's my play? Taking down meticulous notes. I went to REI at least 3 times a week, talking to their sales staff about. So hypothetically, like if I were to like go away for a month and I needed to maybe sometimes like camp outside, maybe there's rain, but I want to keep my backpack really light. Maybe I have to walk through different kinds of terrain or run or do a bunch of stuff. What do you think I should have in this backpack of mine? And they were very intrigued, like, where is this girl going? And it was giving us all these like vague questions. Yes, I tried to be very prepared because for me, I didn't really have any expectation that I was going to like really win The Amazing Race, but I just don't want to finish last.
And where did you go?
It was this park outside of LA near Magic Mountain. That was where I first met my teammate, Jelani, at the starting line. So we got introduced and immediately Phil, the host of the show, was like, all right, you guys are off to your race.
And this is the single show too. So you got that whole thing in the background.
So half of the cast were singles paired up on this blind date, and then the other half were dating couples. Before the starting line, we were all in our rooms trying to get dolled up, look nice, because, okay, this is our debut on The Amazing Race. We wanted to look cute. And then as soon as it started, I dropped into the mud. I was trying to traverse through this obstacle course. There was ice water. At one point, we were like in an ice bath, and you're just like, trying to get through it as quickly as I could. My hair, makeup ruined. And I was like, okay, this is reality now. This is The Amazing Race. That's what I signed up for. And then immediately after that, we had to drive to LAX and get on a plane to Tokyo. So we went to Tokyo. From Tokyo, we went to Bangkok. And then we were in Munich for a bit. We were in Amsterdam. We made our way to Africa, to Namibia. We went to Peru.
So all told, how much time and how many countries?
In the span of 21 days, we went to 11 countries and covered probably about 30,000 miles.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, the very end of our race, the final leg was in Texas. Yeah, it was in Dallas, Texas, at the place where they play football, that stadium. It was such a life-changing experience, and also like just a very like empowering moment for me, because I went on the race just wanting an adventure, not because I felt like I was gonna win it or that I was really and so to have gone that far and to have made it to second place and to traveled around the world and to have been able to do it on my own. Like, obviously I had a great partner, Jelani, but it wasn't like I was going with someone I knew. It was me trying to prove and support Jelani with my abilities and trying to work together as a team. So it was such an empowering moment for me.
But to be clear, there were no warm fuzzies between you and Jelani. Nothing happened. You're just friends.
No, it was not the Bachelor or the Bachelorette.
Okay, no rose ceremony. Okay, good. Let's look back here for a second. All the things you've done, starting with going up to the True Religion's founder, to becoming the first ever GC at one company, and then taking over as GC at another, and then, of course, being an influencer blogger, and then the Amazing Race. Where does all this come from? You don't learn to do this stuff. Where is that in you?
I think it goes back to my parents. They immigrated here from China when I was 7 years old. And at the time, they came here with $200 in their pockets. $200. My dad cleaned houses while getting his PhD at Berkeley. My mom, I mean, she couldn't find a job for the longest time. And in China, she was working at a multinational corporation, you know, but they persevered through that, and they remained positive through it all and believed that, you know, through hard work, they could get through it. And they did. They've achieved so much with so little. And I think when I see that and I see how they've been able to really achieve the American dream, for me, it's like, well, then everything that I do, it just seems like small potatoes to all the challenges and obstacles that they had to face, you know? So I think that's what really inspired me and motivated me to always keep trying, because I saw that spirit in my parents. And I truly believe, you know, you put in the hard work, keep trying, like, it's going to pay off for you.
Jenny, the great thing about this podcast is that I get to show examples of sticky lawyers, people who are lawyers who just stand out for so many different reasons. And you would have simply earned that title because of your in-house career as a fashion lawyer and of course, your personality. But you, hands down, get some added stickiness points, some extra credit for the other things that you've done with Good, Bad, and Fab, and of course, the Amazing Race. It's just unbelievable. This has been so much fun for me, and I'm sure the Sticky Lawyer community has enjoyed this as well. If people want to learn more about you, where should they go?
They can find me on Instagram at Good, Bad, and Fab. They can find me on my blog, goodbadandfab.com.
Fabulous. Fabulous. See, I said it. Fabulous. Jenny, thank you for sharing your stories and your many accomplishments with us. It has been my absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This has been fun for me as well.
And thank you for listening. To hear this episode again or download other Sticky Lawyers episodes, visit stickylawyers.com. There, you'll be able to view episode transcripts, behind-the-scenes notes, and recommend a standout lawyer who might be a future guest. And please don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. Everyone at Rain BDM who works so hard to produce this podcast would greatly appreciate it. Until next time, I'm John Reed, and you've been listening to Sticky Lawyers.